welcome back, everybody, to the Tom and Lonnie Chat. I'm Tom Kerfus over at Georgia Tech, and my learned co-host, Dr. Lonnie Love from Sandia National Laboratories. We're in here today, and we're going to be talking about implementation of Microsoft Azure. So that's Microsoft's cloud platform, but it also does things like run Excel and Microsoft Word and things like that you're pretty much used to and that you see on your machine tools every day, in your plant. So to help us out, well, of course, first of all, let's, how are you, Lonnie? I didn't even get to say hi to Lonnie this morning.
I'm doing great. It's early morning, got my coffee. Got my fall cup, I'm really, really having a great time.
I like it. Got your pumpkin spice latte going on already?
Got it, buddy. No,
there you
black
go.
Coffee. That's all I drink.
I like that you got that mirror behind you with the light. You got the whole halo effect going on. It's super nice. Let's bring on, let's see, is our buddy Stephen Lamarca? Are you around, Stephen?
What's up, guys?
Hey, man, how are you?
I'm all right. It's an early day here, but that's nice because it's nice and quiet in the office for me.
Well, we're coming to you. That's right. It's early in the morning. Of course, this is pre-recorded, so you can watch us anytime, but we're watching the sun come up over here. And to help us move things along is one of our favorite guests, Cyber Kyle.
Hello, everyone. How are you all?
Good morning, Cyber Kyle.
Doing well, Cyber Kyle. Hey, so today, and actually, let me sort of before we go on, part of what we're doing here is we're talking about how to connect up your shop and how to do it in a pretty economic sense, but also in a secure sense and so forth. So this is not duct tape and paper clips. This is using really state-of-the-art, commercially available capabilities. We've talked a little bit about Microsoft and Google and Amazon Web Services, AWS. It's sort of the bigger picture previously. And what we're going to do now is today we're going to talk about some details on Microsoft implementation. And then next month, so in November, we're going to talk about Google implementation. So using Google Drive and so forth. Of course, in December, we're going to take a little bit of break. It's going to be our December holiday special. And we're hoping to get a bunch of people down here in Atlanta for a little bit of fun. And then we will get back to implementations in January with AWS, Amazon Web Services. So again, the nitty-gritty detail and so forth. But, prior to the show going, and we do have this conversation, why is this important? Yes, it's great that you can connect things up and what you can do and so forth. But Lonnie and Lonnie, I thought had some pretty good thoughts in terms of where things are going on the big picture. Lonnie, why don't you just sort of talk about some of the things we've just been chatting about?
Yeah. So we've been diving in on all the different ways to do the digital manufacturing, but you might ask the question, well, why? Everything's working fine right now. What do I need it for? And there's this. I was talking to a colleague earlier, and he said, well, if you are not getting versed in AI, you're going to be left behind because this is coming. It is coming really hard. And it's kind of like this whole digital revolution. It's if you're not becoming at least knowledgeable, not that you need to be an expert, but this whole digital manufacturing, if you're not at least knowledgeable, you're going to get left behind. And that's not what we want. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is kind of survey a lot of different ways to do it and get to if you're a small, medium-sized enterprise, just crawl, walk, run. Let's first just, what is an inexpensive way that you can just get in the game, understand how to use it, understand the impact it could have on your productivity, your profitability, and then we were talking earlier, a lot of the larger companies in like the early 2000s, we're talking like Pepsi and Ford, they started pushing energy efficiency. They had energy efficiency goals. And what they started doing was pushing that down on their suppliers. And so their suppliers had to get up to speed. And I think this whole digital manufacturing is going to have potentially a similar situation. So just before that happens, let's become pretty knowledgeable about what digital manufacturing is, the low-cost ways to see how it can help you, so that when this wave does start to build, you're ahead of that wave. You're able to surf in and be able to be a part of this whole manufacturing infrastructure that's based on digital.
Right. And I mean, I agree 100%. So we want to get you off the ground. We want to work with you to get you moving in a way that's safe and secure. So you just clear some of the lower hurdles. But simultaneously, as Lonnie was saying, I mean, let's say you're a supplier to both Ford and GM, but they use completely different systems. So how do you develop your capabilities, that can, feed to both Ford and the GM, or maybe it's Boeing, maybe it's Lockheed Martin and so forth, in a very seamless way. I mean, one of the things, and we may hear some about it, but we're certainly going to see it down the road. So Kyle, and we're going to bring Matt Kosmala on in a minute. They're talking about implementation with Microsoft. So I think that there are many instances where you're sending Microsoft Excel spreadsheets over to your customer with component information from your production operations and so forth. So wouldn't it be cool if your machine tool automatically filled out those spreadsheets for you and actually kept them off in the cloud where they're safe and nobody can encrypt them and the whole bit, and then automatically send them over to Ford or GM or whoever your customer is? I mean, that's really what we're thinking about, just trying to make life a little bit easier.
So Tom, I've got a question.
Okay.
I got a question for you. So I think you grew up in a machine shop, right?
I certainly did, yeah.
And so do you think this is going to be a similar trend to when in the 80s we started going to numerical controls, where if you didn't have knowledge about numerical controls, those that got knowledgeable got out ahead. Yeah. Are we getting ready to see a similar type thing where this is going to be a transformation? It'll take a few years, but if you don't, just like CNCs, if you didn't start looking at it, when did your dad's company, when did you guys start looking at numerical control in your machine shop?
So it was NC, it wasn't CNC back in the day. This was in the mid 70s, and really I think the advantage, even if you wanted to start a shop, the startups that were doing really well were the ones that embraced CNC or NC back in the day and so forth. And we had a lot of friends who were machinists and so forth, and they were able to start their own company because they could do some pretty good programming. And now there's a whole lot more capability and so forth. And I agree, this is going to be, I think this is going to be very similar because it's going to make you more efficient. I think there are going to be instances where if you can't connect digitally and you don't use the digital thread, you're just not going to be able to secure the business, because there are going to be companies that are going to say, we want to make sure information is secured. We want to make sure that you're protected, because the last thing Ford needs to have happen is to have a major supplier get taken down by ransomware and so forth. So, it's going to be about getting data back and forth, getting the parts, quality, and so forth. But I think it's also going to be, important in terms of making sure the supply chain is just secure. And I mean, we talk about, I was in meetings the other day, and people talk about, I just want to reduce that uncertainty. If I can make sure that my supply chain is going to be able to deliver, that's very important. So, I agree, Lonnie.
You brought up a really good point about this data privacy and where is the data and who owns the data and what's going to happen to it. How do I protect myself? And I think as we go across these next couple of months, like you said, with these different implementations, we're starting with one where you own the data. It is right on your computer. It never leaves it. It's just like any file or PDF or Word document or naturally a spreadsheet document that you have sitting right there on your machine. Now, there's other ways that you can connect to the cloud as well, and those have some inherent things that we'll talk about later on too. But we're given this range of just getting your feet wet, of getting that knowledge, as you said, Lonnie.
Cool.
Great. All right. Well, tell you what, let's get our feet wet, or at least let's get a toe in the water. So we're going to turn it over to Kyle and Matt Kosmala to take a look at what they were working on this past summer with respect to Microsoft. So over to you, Kyle and Matt.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing well. So hello, my name is Matt Kosmala, and today I'll be presenting a short guide on MTConnect machine data monitoring in Microsoft Excel. So really quick, I've worked 2 previous internships with Georgia Tech. I'm currently finishing up my bachelor's degree in computer science at North Carolina State University, and I've got fingers crossed waiting on grad school applications right now. So now
time today, it's going to be cool to see this implementation. I know Tom and I have talked about this for a long time. So, today, like kind of like you mentioned, we want to see the hands-on, the nuts and bolts of how you connect MTConnect out of a running machine tool, excuse me, and bring it into Microsoft Excel. And to all the listeners out there, we've done our best to make this as a clean and simple of a process as possible. Of course, we've made this as safe as we can too, but do not connect your computer to the internet unless you have the proper cybersecurity practices in place. And then all of this code and all the videos are going to be posted on our GitHub channel under the Georgia Tech Manufacturing Institute. And we'll keep updates, and you can send any questions or any other comments there. So, okay, Matt, then. So let's jump right into it.
Alrighty, so in this PowerPoint presentation, I'm going to briefly summarize and document some of the steps to setting up a simple monitoring program. So the program itself is a simple MTConnect based data monitor with the actual display and visualization in an Excel sheet. So the image on the right side over here is the basic overview of the moving pieces I use to automate the Excel sheet. So the monitor or display is hosted in Microsoft Excel, and all the visualization being generated from Excel tools and functions. The sheet is also the final destination for the data output by a Python script. So the script being responsible for getting data from your CNC, saving that data to an SQL database file, and updating the Excel sheet at appropriate intervals. The script itself is coded to read data off the CNC every 10 seconds and send tags related to its current status at the same rate. And in 1 minute intervals, will calculate and upload the axis loads for the last minute and recalculate daily utilization every hour. And so I also want to point out that there's really nothing limiting someone from increasing these rates besides their own hardware or network constraints. There's a certain point that'll be different on everyone's computer where the amount of data being received by the script will be more than what's being saved and sent to the Excel sheet, especially when the code making it happen is in a high-level interpreted language like Python. And so while
does this work for all machines, or just a subset of machines, or which machines does it work on?
This should work on any MTConnect enabled machine. So any machine that has an MTConnect agent that you can go to its little localhost port 5000 and look at the current MTConnect XML data coming out of it.
And we developed it out on a Mazak with a specific MTConnect version. So does that version matter as well?
As the version changes, some little semantics will change, but oftentimes the tag names are the most significant thing that's different between machines, and it just depends on how whoever implemented it. And so most of the tag names are pretty universal though, and they're all of the important ones that are displayed by this program should be universal between different versions.
Excellent. So we'll post the list of machines that we've tried and tested this on with the exact specifications. And then as other people develop it out and try it on different ones, they can let us know.
For sure. And so I guess moving on, the front end display of the tool will look something like this in Microsoft Excel. So this is a dashboard of sorts that is used to visualize the machine status on its based on its current production, running program, tool number, axis loads, errors, any recent errors, and lastly, the hourly and daily machine utilization, as well as a timestamp of the last time that it was updated. So the data sheet, this sheet actually contains the formatted data sent from the Python script itself. All of the pre-populated cells on this sheet should not be altered for any reason. So all the cells on this page, besides the bolded words, column titles, and time intervals, are pre-formatted and sent to Excel in these tables already. So the graphs that display all this information update in real time without anybody having to actually touch anything once the program is running.
So when they get this data in, right, we intentionally put this format here so people could see it, and they could copy and paste it into another Excel sheet, but you don't want to change this one, right? Because this is the one that drives the graphs.
Correct. You don't want to touch this one at all if you don't want to mess with anything on this shop monitor sheet. So everything in this column C right here is updated every 10 seconds. The hourly and average loads are updated once a minute. You don't want to change these because it won't be actually representative of what your machine is doing on that last update that was received by the program, you know?
Excellent.
All right, so let's jump right into the configuration now of setting this program up. So the CNC requires some form of an MTConnect implementation with an agent outputting data in an XML format to its localhost port 5000/current. The Python script for data transfer, the SQL database file, and the Excel sheet would all be hosted on a separate computer, which I'll be referring to throughout the rest of this as the host PC. If your CNC isn't connected to any network that the host PC is available to connect to, you'll need to connect the both of them with an Ethernet cable and do a little bit of an Ethernet adapter configuration, which I will be walking through in the next and following steps.
And we want to make a point here, right? Without the cybersecurity, the correct cybersecurity practices, do not connect the computer or the machine to the internet. We've had
Correct.
many TLC podcasts talking about some of the dangers of this, and your distributor. There's other people out there that can help with cybersecurity, but be very careful not to connect this to the internet directly.
Absolutely, I agree with that sentiment. And so in the next few slides, I will be walking through how to get this spun up and on your machine. So the general steps are to download the right files from the GTMI GitHub repository, and then to ensure that the network between the CNC and the host PC is configured correctly through an Ethernet cable, and then to just start the program and let it start collecting data. In the next slides, I'll give a fairly detailed walkthrough on how to get this up and running on a machine. The general steps are to download the right files from the GTMI GitHub repository, make sure the networking between the CNC and host PC is configured correctly through the Ethernet cable, and to start the program. I see. So you'd want to go to the GTMI repository, essentially. And once you're here, you could easily just go and download the entire zip folder and wait for it to finish. All right. You'd wait for it to finish, and eventually you would collect your files into a common folder into something like this, and just have the executable right next to the Excel spreadsheet template. This machine data file will be created after your machine starts running, but for the sake of this, I would like just to show what this would look like once it starts running. And so it'll ask us to enter an IP in the form of an IP address. And so we're going to go back to the PowerPoint, and I'll walk you through a couple of the network configuration steps required to make that happen. So once it's downloaded and you have them in a collected folder like this, you would have to go to your control panel first and go to your network and sharing center, which you do by clicking on the view network status and tasks. And once you're here, you would have a screen similar to this where it'll say your current network's name and give you a bunch of options on the left, and you'll want to change the adapter settings. Once you choose that option, you will be displayed with a whole selection of different network adapters, essentially. And so if your host PC is connected to the internet, one of these will obviously show, a couple green bars showing that you're connected. But there will be a couple that if you plug in the Ethernet into your host PC, you should be able to notice one of them go from network cable unplugged to unidentified network. So,
and again, make sure that when you do this, right, that the Wi-Fi is turned off, that you are not connected to your Wi-Fi or your internet network. We're only connecting directly to the machine.
Only do this if you know that your Wi-Fi network is safe. Only, unless you have the cybersecurity policies and practices in place, make sure the Wi-Fi is turned off. So yeah, as I was saying, you should notice that you literally just plug in the machine to the host PC and then wait for one of these to go from network cable unplugged to unidentified. And then from there, you would right click and then go to the properties, and you'll be displayed with a screen similar to this. And you would scroll down to the Internet Protocol version 4 or the IPv4 settings. You want to double click that so you can go and edit these. And so this is all only on the host PC that you're editing these fields. You could do this on the CNC just to look at them, but you should not change anything on the CNC, nothing. So on the host PC, if this is obtaining an IP address automatically, you want to use the following IP address. And so with this next part, this is where we're going to have to look at the CNC IP configuration, right? So what you will have to do, one second. What you'll have to do is on the CNC, you'll look for an adapter with a name along the lines of Ethernet PC or Ethernet NC and navigate to its IPv4 settings, similar to the previous steps on the host machine. Or if you can't find the adapter settings through this, you could do it through command prompt with the ipconfig all command. Again, do not change the CNC configuration in any way, as we don't want to possibly alter any of the MTConnect's agent functionality, and do not connect it to the internet. And so based on my experience with MTConnect implementations on different machines, I've been able to use the information for either Ethernet NC or Ethernet PC and still achieve the same goal. So you want to copy the values for the subnet mask, the default gateway, both found on the CNC, and type them into the IPv4 settings on your host PC. You want to just directly copy these so that they can be on the same network to be able to talk together, essentially. And so you'd also have to choose a new IP. And by choosing a new IP, this simply means that in this case, the first 3 octets of the CNC's IP should be copied, but the last value should be different on the host PC and not being used by another machine on the network. You also want to make a note of the CNC's IP address for the next few steps. And so, at least in this case, being a Class C network with a 255, 255, 2550, this is the situation where you'd only change the last number of the IP, but depending on the subnet mask, some of the IP addresses might have to change. And so once you confirm the settings on the host PC and leave the CNC settings unaltered, you'd want to go to the executable on your host PC and double click just to get started in a small command prompt window. And it would show you a screen similar to this once you double click on that.
And that's where we left off to look at the IP address, right? You had just double clicked on that program.
Yes, correct. So we're going to pull that up right now. And so I believe the address I entered was 123.123.215.5. And then you just hit enter, and assuming everything is configured correctly, it should just launch Microsoft Excel on its own and should start populating for you. And so for the sake of this presentation, I have this running on pre-existing data. However, you would still see the similar current status effects. You should still see the feed, rapid, and spindle overrides come through right off the bat. And so this is essentially the Excel sheet running by itself, and I have little timestamps in the window just to show that it's refreshing every 10 seconds or close to every 10 seconds or so on. And so you can see the shop monitor. We can take a look at the data that it's actually representing is found in the data sheet and so on. Here you can see all of the hourly usage access load tables that are being sent directly from Python. The other things I didn't cover earlier in the images at the start, the long-term data storage sheet is a simple sheet that just shows trends in your machine's data in the last 24 hours in 5-minute intervals. So you can just take a look at, the actual utilization every 5 minutes, the access loads and the feed, rapid, and spindle overrides, and just, you can determine whenever things were switched, whenever the machine stopped working on something or whenever it started, and so on. The last sheet, the data historian sheet, which I also didn't show earlier, this is sort of an interactive sheet that would allow a user to enter data or enter a date for a particular date that they want to see data for in the past. So I just entered August 8th of a particular year. That will reach back and just look for data in the database file. And if it's on that date, it will repopulate this entire sheet with the data for that day.
So Matt, this is pretty slick, right? You've got 3 different views here. You've got your current machine status on the first page. you've got your supporting data and the long-term data storage that fills this graph, right? That's the data that you're actually displaying.
Correct.
And then at the end, you've got your historian, which is everything that's been recorded up until that point. So you've got three ways to view it: your current, what's happened to the data behind those graphs, and then the long-term storage, what's happened on your machine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So honestly, this could be something that could be very easily be extended on in the future to be able to just export, so you'd be able to format it better for, exporting a report for a whole day or something like that. Just for the context and the scope of the project, I wasn't sure what those would look like, but I'm sure that this could very easily be something just to quickly generate reports for machine data, essentially, once it's further refined. So to briefly recap the most important takeaways, the most important steps from this presentation, you essentially want to go to the GitHub repository and download the Excel template file and the executable for your system, or create your own from source code with the documentation that will be available in the repository. And then you would have to ensure the proper IP and network configuration between the host PC and the CNC itself, which we will also be adding detailed step-by-step instructions and documentation on how to properly do this and properly find the IP of your CNC.
That's the most difficult part of this, it seems, is just making sure that those numbers match up and are set in the right way to get the computer talking to the CNC. And again, that's why we're being so careful by saying not connected to the internet, just so only those two are able to talk together. So we'll post detailed documentation for how to do that.
Correct. Yeah, we will be, and hopefully we'll have some kind of way for you to be able to post questions and be able to respond to them and help you out with that and that kind of thing. And so essentially, once your CNC and your host computer are talking to each other correctly, you just run the executable and enter the IP of the CNC. And once you're free to do that, or once you do that, you're free to just let the program continually collect data until either the machine or the host PC shuts off. And so lastly, I want to make a few acknowledgments and thank those at Georgia Tech. Thank those at Georgia Tech who aided me in this project during my time there. I hope to see this software help those out there who don't have the assets to monitor their CNCs, just to at least get started on collecting data and determine how it could potentially help their business. So my name is Matt Kosmal, and thank you for your time and attention.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Matt. Really appreciate you putting this together for us. So with that, Tom and Lonnie, we'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Well, that was pretty cool. Thank you very much for that, both Kyle and Matt, and we appreciate Matt. Matt's finishing up his senior year at NC State, and so we appreciate him taking time out of his exams and so forth. You got those evil professors always making him work.
Well, I got a question. So you at Georgia Tech, an ACC school, works with another ACC school? Really?
Hey,
wow.
I don't look at it as working with another ACC school. We just work with the best. That's why I have you guys on here as well. So, you could even be at, I don't know, MIT, and I'd still work with you, Lonnie. So, But
Awesome.
But seriously, that was really cool and so forth. I don't know, what did you guys think about some of the stuff that you saw there?
So I love how simple it is. I mean, like I said, we were talking earlier. It's like all the tools are there, readily available, easily to implement. Not a lot of money. It's a walk. It's a kind of a crawling, get your feet wet. I think it's really pretty exciting.
Yeah, and not only are they available, but you've got a tablet. I think people are using Office 365, and it's even on your smartphone and the whole bit.
I like what you could actually, Tom, you could have your BlackBerry if you wanted to, your flip phone. Holy cow.
I'll never live that one down. Yes, my phone. I don't know if that's capable and so forth. I don't know. Any thoughts, Stephen?
Yeah, my main thought was. So for the few of us that are ashamedly not born into the machine tool industry or in a machine shop, when I came into this industry a couple of years ago, the machine monitoring, the digital thread, all of the data was pushed down my throat immediately. And there's a lot of providers for a service like this, But and then some of them look really good. Some of them are they're all really awesome and really good. But the cheapskate in me looks at some of those companies and they're like,
Yeah.
for the price of this service that they will
Yeah.
offer, and they'll take care of it all for you. You could have an industrial grade robot every year for how much it costs. Like it's that astronomically expensive. And now, Kyle and Matt have laid out the fact that no, all you really need is like Tom said earlier, a computer, a cable, and maybe a license to Microsoft Office, and with a little bit of reading, get this done yourself if you want to go through that.
Well, and I know for myself personally, I like if I'm trying something new, I want something simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like when you're programming, it's the hello world. I just want hello world, just so I can understand the input output, and that's what I like here. Is it's not a really difficult way to kind of do. Okay, here's hello world for a digital manufacturing.
With that being said, I mean, by the way, Lonnie, I know you like the simple things, which is why you and I make such a good team. You like working with me. But that being said, I mean, what's cool, at least I picked up on, let me throw this just back at Kyle and sort of see if you have any thoughts here. But I saw some kind of pretty cool looking things that you might be able to do, but it looked like it was all running on Excel.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little bit more? Because and how, some customizing and so forth. And again, running on Excel, right?
Yeah, that's all there is to it. And actually, if you want to bring up our spreadsheet again here, this is just a standard graph that any small business owner, someone that wants to plot their revenue, that wants to look at trends within their company, these are the same tools. The only fancy thing we did was kind of a language converting the machine language to something that Excel can understand. Even though we abstracted that away and made it as a double-click program. But you can look at your machine usage here of what was happening over time, what was happening in the last hour, the last couple minutes. You get your access load. If there was a spike in the machine, you can look back over time and see, oh, what happened there? What did I change, or did someone accidentally hit something on the machine? And you get this kind of 10-second update in the current version of, well, what is my feed and my overrides? Right now, we're looking. This is a snapshot of it, of course. So we're sitting here in our office, but this is a feed at 50% and your rapids at 50%. So maybe not optimal for what's happening on the machine right now. So we're just getting these simple tools with technologies that are out there. People know Excel. People know how to work with numbers. We've built in some other fun features later on that might be useful as people get more familiar with it. But we want to put it in your hands where you can try it, where you can see where everything comes from and understand the process end to end.
So let me so two thoughts here. Number one is that is Excel, right? So like if I've got a machine tool and I've got
Excel.
A Windows front end and so forth, my machine tool will run this, right?
That's it. A Windows front end and Microsoft Excel.
Okay, and the second thing is, so I want to sort of make it clear. So we're working very hard, and we will have some of our future podcasts. One of the things we're talking about is making sure that everybody understands, the big picture. Hey, where are things going to go? But also some of the details as well. So we're working very hard to get some of these spreadsheets out there and to teach you exactly how you tie in, kind of step by step. Here's your machine, securely tie into the network. You've got an Azure account, but maybe it's a Google, maybe it's an AWS account, but make use of that, and then you can start to generate some of these plots, and then you can update them. And by the way, I would think, Kyle, correct if I'm wrong here, but I think a kid who's pretty sharp at doing some programming and so forth, let's say even at a high school level, could probably help you out. So, he could probably go to the local high school and have somebody do a little bit of tweaking and so forth for you. Is that correct, Kyle, or do you need a PhD in computer science for this thing?
You certainly don't need a PhD in computer science. I think someone that, one of your friends that's maybe really technically savvy, they could go in and even change some of the inner workings of this if they would like to as well. And and we produce this. This is something where we want to open the doors to and show how it's done.
So one thing, Kyle, is that really it doesn't matter which machine tool. You just need MTConnect, some sort of a communication protocol, right? That's it. So you could have a Haas, you could have a Mazak, you could have a DMG. It doesn't really matter.
And of course, the example we've picked here is Akuma, right? Just to show one of the implementations. But that's exactly right. An MTConnect stream and a little computer.
Cool. Yeah. Very, very cool.
Microsoft Excel. The other thing, the other thing. Pardon me?
And some kind of a connection.
Yeah.
Well, so in this case, how did you connect to the machine, Kyle?
This was just an Ethernet cable, plugging your local computer right into the machine.
Awesome.
But that being said, and I do want to highlight, and I think some of the stuff we should be looking at, and maybe this is not maybe, I think it's definitely a future discussion. Maybe we bring some of our colleagues in from various cybersecurity institutes and so forth, but just some of the best practices that we should have on making sure that we're staying safe. And again, I think everybody knows, well, you've got a router and its password is what? Username admin, ADMIN, password is password. You probably should change those, as soon as you get them and so forth, because you really don't want to know. And people do, right? I mean, you do have a router in your shop and people do, people do just plug it in and say, okay, I'm good to go. Changing it around is pretty good. And there are other services that are out there that'll really help keep you a little bit more sophisticated than just changing passwords and usernames and so forth. And we can talk a fair amount about that. In fact, that's probably some good topics of conversations between now and I would say when we get together at IMTS in 2024. So cool. So I think that we are pretty close to wrapping it up. Anybody have any final thoughts before we send you off on your day today?
No, I like I said, I really appreciate it, Kyle, on that, because this I like to keep it simple to start. Really, really good job.
This is awesome.
It's simple, it's powerful, it's accessible, and by the way, it's not expensive at all. You have most of the elements there. And again, stay tuned for future versions of TLC, because we will get into a little bit more detail about how you get this going and so forth, give you some examples of spreadsheets that you can download so you can start to populate some of these things and just play around with them for yourself. So,
awesome.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, listen, everybody. It was good seeing y'all and so forth. And I wish y'all we'll see you next month where we do our Google implementation. That'll be in our November podcast. And then, like I said, December, we're going to have our holiday special. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully, we're going to get everybody together in one place. So,
awesome. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Stay safe, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.